So when firms are in production, they must understand that they are financed either by debt or capital. So under risk and return, we must understand that there are three types of investors any business may have. So we have the risk averse, the risk seekers, and the risk neutral. So the risk seeker will usually follow risk with the assumption that the higher the risk, the higher the return. The risk neutral is indifferent to risk. So this one, as long as there is no risk at all, or there's a positive return, that is when they invest. Then we also have the risk averse, who runs away from risk with the assumption that risk is deadly. They may end up making losses. So when our expected utility is zero, means we're dealing with our risk neutral investor. If an expected utility is less than zero or negative, just know that that is a risk seeker. And if expected utility is greater than zero, that is the risk averse. So these are the three types of investors that we have. Now, we have what we call leverage. Leverage is a term even in accounting which looks at the extent to which the firm is financed by debt. So under risk and return, we need to understand things like degree of operating leverage. What does it mean and how important is it? So degree of operating leverage measures our financial metric of the sensitivity that a company has to the changes in sales volume. The degree of operating leverage gives or provides insight on the potential impact of the changes in sales to the profitability. So it is a tool that is very important in helping assess a company's risk. So just a few notes to guide you from what I've just said as follows. So the degree of operating leverage has this formula that we're going to look at. It represents the multiple by which the change in sales can affect the company's operating income. A higher degree of operating leverage simply means that the income is more sensitive to changes in sales. So a lower degree of operating leverage also implies less risk. So we'll be given questions as follows. We are told that there are two firms in an industry. Their selling price is 10 kwacha. So here its selling price is 10 kwacha. We have a fixed cost is 100 kwacha or $100. The average variable cost is 6 kwacha. This is for firm 1. There's what we call the break-even output. This is the output at which the firm neither makes a profit or a loss. So it's given simply by the fixed cost over contribution. The contribution is simply the selling price minus the variable cost. So for firm 1, we calculate it as follows. So the fixed cost is what? 100 kwacha. And the selling price we have 10. And we also have the variable cost, which is 6 kwacha. That is for firm 1. So we're going to subtract 10 minus 6. So here we're going to have 100 over 4. So this will be 25. So I think this was for another question, but here we're going to get 100 over what? 4, which is 25. That is what we call the break-even output. Okay. Then we're also given another theme. The other theme has how much? 300 as the total fixed cost. The variable cost is what? 3.33. They are all using the same selling price. So break-even output for firm 2, we're going to have what? 300 over 10 minus 3.33. So we calculate the same. What is 10 minus 3.33? Then you divide it into the 300. So that's how we calculate the break-even output. Are we clear so far?
Yes.
Are we clear so far?
Yes, we are very clear.
So this is how we calculate the break-even output. Now, we're also told that why is the break-even output for the second larger than the first firm? So usually, there is a relationship that we get between production. So when the output when the fixed costs are more, we usually have a high break-even output. When the fixed costs are less, we have a small break-even output. So there's a relationship that exists also with risk. I'll explain the relationship after we do the computations, so that we understand the way the relationships come out. Okay. So why is a break-even output larger? So the break-even output is larger for the first firm because there's high total fixed cost. However, it has a lower average fixed cost. So this means that the second firm has higher costs to cover in reaching the break-even output. Let's go through it again. The first part, we're given the following information. We're told that the selling price is 10 for firm 1, 100 fixed cost for firm 1, and the average variable cost is 6. So how do we find the break-even output for firm 1? So this is how you break down. So given that, the formula is, you can do 2 formulas. So if you like, they'll give the same answer, but the easiest one is what I'm going to give you. So Q is equal to what? Total fixed cost over selling price minus variable cost. So here we had what? 100 over selling price was how much? 10 minus 6. So this will be 100 over 4, which is 25. You could also use the formula where we know total cost is total fixed plus total variable cost. So the total fixed cost was 100, the variable cost, which is 6 times the quantity is what we want to find out. So 100 plus 6Q. Then our total cost must be the same as total revenue at break even. So the price is 10 kwacha, the Q we don't know. So 10Q is equal to 100 plus 6Q. So you solve for Q. So 6Q, when it goes this side, minus 10Q, we're going to get 4Q. And 100 is this side, so we divide 4 on both sides, we're going to get a 25. It's the same answer that you get. All together, you can choose either of them, which is easy for you. Similarly, the second one, you can do the same. You calculate the break-even output by using the equations that we were learning yesterday. Or we simply use the shortcut that I've just given you. The output here is equal to total fixed cost over price minus variable cost. So here, our fixed cost is what? 300. Our price is simply 10 minus 3.33. When you divide that, you're going to get 45. So our break-even output was 45 for the second one. So FEM1 output was what? 25. FEM2 output was what? 45. Then here our total fixed cost was how much? 100. Here it increased. Our total fixed cost was how much? 300. Now the question is, why is the total break-even output more for the second one? So it has to do with the fixed cost, like I said. So what is the reason behind that? So this is the reason that I was explaining to say a break-even output was higher for the second FEM than the first one because it requires it has higher total fixed costs and lower variable costs. So the higher the total fixed cost, it means the second FEM has higher cost to cover. Therefore, to reach that break-even output, they have to produce more. The lower one, the variable costs are low, so they don't have so much to sell to reach the fixed cost. So this is the explanation. So we go to calculating the degree of operating leverage. Find the degree of operating leverage, or find the degree of operating leverage for each of them. Then we want to increase output from 60 to 70. What happens? Okay. So who has the formula for degree of operating leverage? How do you find the degree of operating leverage? So degree of operating leverage is found by quantity price minus average variable cost, then quantity minus price minus average variable cost divided by total fixed cost. So this is very dependent on the answers we found initially. So if we're dealing with FEM1, what was our quantity? 25. The price is still 10. Average variable cost is 6 over the same 25, 10 minus 6. Then minus the total fixed costs that we had was how much? 100. Then but in this case, we've been given the output that we need to use. We've been given 60 and 70. So where there is output, you're going to put 50. You're going to put 50. For FEM1, the average variable cost is 6. FEM2, we're going to use what? 70, 10 minus 3.33. Since that was a variable cost. 70, 10 minus 3.33. However, the fixed cost for the second one was 300. So you calculate the degree of operating leverage. So the one with the higher degree of operating leverage simply denotes that they have a higher what? They have a higher risk attached to them. So the explanation here is that the degree of operating leverage for FEM1 is higher than for FEM2. This shows that FEM1 is more leveraged. Leverage means it has been financed more by debt. So the higher the leverage, the more risk it has. So FEM 1 is more risky. So I need you to redo this question with the explanation that I've done. I think I used a different marking key to just substitute that. So kindly redo this work properly and give me the solutions based on what I have explained. Is anyone behind? Are we
Maybe
together?
you can explain a bit more.
Pardon?
Maybe you can explain a bit more on the last part where you were explaining why the other one has got a higher leverage than the other one.
Okay. Why the other one has more leverage than the other one? Okay, so maybe let me look at the question again together with you. So we've been given two firms. Okay, let me just beam this here. We'll go through the question again. So we've been given two firms, firm 1 and firm 2. So we're told that firm 1 has what? Has a price of 10 kwacha. All right, then the total fixed cost is what? 100 kwacha. And the average variable cost is what? 6 kwacha. So for firm 1, let's find what? The break-even output. So Q is equal to what? Total fixed cost over the contribution, which is simply the price minus the variable cost. So here it was just 100 over 10 minus 6. So our Q here is what? 25. Firm 2, the price is the same 10. The fixed cost is how much? 300. Then we have our average variable cost, which is what? 3.33. So meaning our break-even output in this case would be 300 divided by 10 minus 3.33. We get 45. All together on the first part. Anyone behind?
Yes, yes.
Part? Okay.
It's clear.
So the question is, why is break-even output for the second firm larger than the first firm? Why is break-even? So to be specific, it was actually 44.98, which I just rounded up to 45. It's still okay. So the explanation we gave as follows. Okay. So this is what you can give in explanation. So the break-even output for the second firm is higher than the break-even output for the first firm because increase in total fixed costs on a comparative basis is higher than the decrease in average variable costs. So here for the second firm, the total fixed cost increased by 200%. So from 100 to 300, it increased by 200%. And the average variable cost decreased by 50% from 6 to 3.33 for the second firm. So it requires the second firm to produce relatively more to achieve the break-even. That's the reason. Okay. So let's go to the second part of the question, which is asking us, part B, find the break-even degree of operating leverage. So in this case, we're on part B. What is the operating degree of operating leverage? So in this case, I explained to say we need to understand the formula for degree of operating leverage. Understand the phenomenon. So this is how it's supposed to be answered. So start with just the degree of operating leverage is simply given by P minus average variable cost times quantity, everything over P minus variable cost times quantity minus total fixed cost. So we're going to start from quantity is equal to 60. So degree of operating leverage measures what? The risk. So price minus variable cost times quantity over price minus variable cost times quantity minus the fixed cost. So at 60, we start for FEM 1. FEM 1 is 10 minus 6. The quantity is what? 60. Over 10 minus 6 times quantity is what? 60.
Nice.
Then we subtract. So we're given the 60 here, right? Then the fixed cost for FEM 1 was what? Fixed cost for FEM 1 was what? Was 100. So this is where the 100 is coming from. So when you calculate that, we're going to have a degree of operating leverage is equal to 1.71. So we do the same degree of operating leverage for FEM 2. So here this will be 10 minus 3.33. At the quantity in this case, for the second FEM, we use 60 first of all, for each of them, over 10 minus 3.33 times 60, and the total fixed cost for FEM 2 was 300. So the degree of operating leverage for FEM 2 is giving us what? 3.99. So we're seeing that the degree of operating leverage is more for FEM 2 with all the parameters the same, except the average fixed, the fixed cost and the average. So here we have 1.71, and here we have 3.99. At 70, we do the same. 10 minus 6 times 70. 10 minus 6 times 70, the fixed cost is simply 100. We get 1.56. The second FEM, again, 10 minus 3.33 times 70. 10 minus 3.33 times 70 minus the fixed cost of 300, then we used here. We get 2.80. So the explanation is that the degree of operating leverage for this first FEM is larger than the second FEM when we are increasing output from 60 to 70. Why? Because there's higher investment in fixed assets, which is causing a decrease in the average variable cost. So for FEM 1, the degree of operating leverage has increased from FEM 1 to FEM 2 because we have increased our fixed costs. Now, fixed costs are simply avenues through which debt capital is tied in a FEM. Most of the fixed costs that are bought for the FEM cars are usually on debt. So we have increased our fixed costs. So this has made the leverage increase. And also we are seeing that there has been an increase. There's been actually a decrease in our average variable cost by a slight significance. So over about 50%, which is not compared to the fixed cost that we've increased by 200%. So it has generated relatively higher contribution for the second FEM. Although operating income is relatively decreasing for the second FEM, the degree of operating leverage has increased so this is an analytical question that requires you to understand the concept for you to apply it. So the degree of operating leverage for the second FEM is larger than the first FEM. Why? Because there has been high investment in fixed assets. And this has caused a decrease automatically in the average variable cost. Now, it generates relatively higher contribution margin for the second firm, although operating income is relatively decreasing. So it makes a degree of operating leverage larger for the second firm. Now, the degree of operating leverage from 60 to 70 units there is the degree of operating leverage is greater at 60 than at 70 because there is what? Low quantity operating income, which is making the degree of operating leverage in the denominator, like we saw there, to increase. So the main reason is the phenomenon that I just explained here. So this is a 10-mark question that you need to articulate very well. So thank you so much for your time. We end here. So these are the key questions. I think I've answered most of the questions in this pamphlet. In the evening, I'll be looking at regression and part of cost theory as well. Thank you so much.